I'm really excited to be able to introduce you to Dr. Juanita Tookes. Dr. Tookes is a part of our CAPS office, and I'll let her introduce herself in a second. But the topic that we're going to be talking about today is a really important one because uh, we developed the Orientation Jumpstart based on topics that all of you have talked to us about over the years. Things that are always concerns for students like yourself that are starting in a brand new program. And imposter syndrome is definitely one that always is at the top of the list. And I am so excited to be able to have Dr. Tookes here to be able to talk to you about this, to give you some thoughts, some insights, some perspectives to be able to help you in this transition. But also know that as we go through this presentation today, again, use the chat, ask questions. We love these to be interactive, and definitely Dr. Tookes wants to be able to talk to you as we are going through this. So, Dr. Tookes, thanks so much for being here. I will turn it over to you, and we'll go from there.
Well, thank you, Dr. Lewis, and thank you for helping me through the technical jungle that I found myself in. But hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here. I am Dr. Juanita Tookes. I'm the Assistant Director in the Counseling and Psychological Services, aka CAPS department, here to talk to you about imposter syndrome. First of all, I just want to congratulate you all for being in graduate school. This is a big accomplishment. Sometimes imposter syndrome can overshadow that. I know it did with me. As soon as I got admitted into my doc program, imposter syndrome just took over, and I didn't even realize just how big of an accomplishment that my admission was. I didn't even celebrate myself because I was so afraid that I was going to get found out as an imposter and I would be kicked out of the program. I mean, these are real thoughts and real feelings. But I want to start this off by just saying congratulations. This is a monumental achievement, and I don't want imposter syndrome ruining that, for you. So I just wanted to take a second to say congratulations. Okay, so I am going to share my screen. I'm going to send a request so that I can do that. So that I can share some things with you. But I know that people have heard of imposter syndrome. I don't think people completely understand what it looks like. And I hope that with this presentation, I can give you just some more details and some real life kind of scenarios of how this shows up. So hopefully everybody can see my screen. If you cannot, just put it in the chat that you can't see it. But hopefully everybody can. So let's get into IS. Let's first talk about what it is. So imposter syndrome is the psychological experience of feeling like a fraud, a fake, like you don't belong here. That's what I want to emphasize. And it's based off of a person's perception of their own skills and abilities. So this has nothing to do with what other people are telling you. This is about how you feel about what you do. I want to make sure that I emphasize that. This is about you, your thoughts, your perception of yourself. Okay. This also is based off of your belief system. So, yes, your thoughts, but to a deeper level, your beliefs. What do you believe about you? And we're going to talk about the power of believing in yourself. I know it might sound um, uh, like cliche-ish or like Disney-ish, but believing in yourself actually is an important part of how you counteract imposter syndrome. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So despite contradicting evidence that supports a person's accomplishments, the fear of being found out is very, very real. So I want you to look at the image, right? The image shows this woman, and look at what's surrounding her, right? She has the grades, straight A student. She has the certificates. She has trophies and medals, crowns, and positive progress reports, and everyone's giving her thumbs up and clapping. She's succeeding. She's doing a great job. But all of that that's surrounding her, look at her facial expression, right? It seems like it's not matching. It's not matching up with all of this external praise and all of this external validation that you really are doing a great job and that you are successful. Her facial expression is not reflecting that. To me, she looks a little worried, maybe stressed. And if you see what she's holding in her hands, it's a mask, right? The mask actually has the facial expression that matches the background of her accomplishments, which means this is something that she feels as though she has to put on to kind of go with the flow of it. But in her heart of hearts, she really feels unworthy of the praise. Maybe there's another reason why I ended up getting this award. Maybe they didn't have anybody else to give it to. Maybe they just they felt bad for me and decided to give me a thumbs up, but I didn't really do that great of a job. Imposter syndrome is an experience where you are constantly trying to find reasons to minimize the success that you have earned. It's always a reason why this couldn't be the case. Like the reason why I got admitted into grad school is because they probably needed to fill out the numbers. And so they just let me in. It's not because I have excellent grades and took all of these advanced courses and I did great in my interview. Couldn't be all that. They just needed to fill out numbers. So, what I hope to encourage you all to do is to not find reasons to downplay how amazing you are. You're amazing. You got admitted to grad school because you're amazing. And I don't want imposter syndrome making you feel any different. Okay, so the fear of finding out, okay? Imposter syndrome, or IS, can elicit feelings, thoughts, and behaviors of self doubt, harsh self critique, self sabotage, pushing yourself too hard, comparison, which is huge, difficulty accepting praise. You actually would reject it, minimizing success, like I just talked about, and creating unrealistically high standards. So these are some of the things that imposter syndrome can pull out of you. The things that I have experienced and the things that I also see is just being way too hard on yourself as far as what you could have done better, or hard on yourself of what you need to do to really fulfill this concept of success. What you did wasn't enough. You got to do more than that. Matter of fact, you have to do 10 times more than that. If you really want to be successful, what you're doing is not good enough. Imposter syndrome is very harsh. I want you to look at it kind of like this. This is what imposter syndrome just does all day long. You could have did better. Why did you do that? That was dumb. Wait until they find out you're not going to be in this program. Just wait until they see. Like it's just doing this to you all day, and it makes you look kind of like the image. It makes you afraid because you're believing the voice of imposter syndrome like it's true. They are going to find out. I really don't deserve to be here. This could just be a fluke. I should have done better. I need to study harder. I can't take any breaks. I have to study all the time. I don't need to see my friends. If I do it, I'm going to fail. If I get distracted even a little bit, that means that I can be out of the program. Like, and I know for some, it's the way that I'm kind of saying it. It's like, is this really for real? It is very, very, like I said in the previous slide, it is very, very real. The fear of somebody pulling your card and saying, hey, you're not smart. Why are you in grad school? That is a very real feeling. Um, when we talk about fear, we have to talk about anxiety, right? Because that is the found anxiety feeds off of fear, like they're right there together. They're right there together. Anxiety is a fear based mental experience. And when we're talking about anxiety in particular, I want you to think about anxiety like a fast forward button, because that's what it is. Anxiety is usually in all in all of the cases that I've seen is always something about the future outcome. Future outcome. I share with folks a lot of the time when I'm talking about this particular example. I remember when I was in my second year of my doc program. Mind you, it took me 5 years to finish. In my second year, I had read an article about how PhD PhDs who recently had graduated were at the poverty line at that time. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to get a job. I'm not going to get a job. Like, I'm going to graduate and do all of this stuff and not have a job. I'm going to be at the poverty line. I'm going to be in the poorhouse. Now, mind you, it was the second year. Second year. It's not saying that the things in the article that I read weren't true, but I had already fast forwarded myself past graduation and already had myself in a shelter somewhere, already thinking that I wasn't going to be employable, already thinking that I probably didn't deserve to be there. It didn't help that the year before I got rejected out of the program that I got accepted into the following year. So I felt like they maybe just felt sorry for me, just wanted to, since I applied last year, to just go let me in this year. Even though there was contradicting evidence, they didn't let anybody the year that I got rejected. They didn't accept any applications because they were revising the whole curriculum to make the program shorter. But that I didn't care about all that. I felt like maybe they were just trying to do me a favor, make me feel good. So that on top of the things that I was reading about employment just made me very, very afraid. Not only am I not going to have a job, but I might not even survive in this program because somebody is going to find out that I really just don't, deserve to be here. When you experience anxiety for a prolonged amount of time, you might also experience depression. And I want you to think of depression as like the the crash and burn of anxiety, because anxiety takes a lot of energy. I know you may not realize that, but to engage in thinking that is constantly having you on edge and afraid, that takes a lot of mental and physical energy. If you've ever been afraid of anything, which I can tell you, everybody in this room has been afraid of something. Think about that feeling just continuously happening to you and what your body goes through as far as like fight or flight. If you are in a constant state of that, it is going to have physical effects on not just your mind, but also your body. But you can only be in that state for so long before it starts to burn out and then you crash out. And now you're just feeling like, what's the point of even going to class? It's no point of going to class. Like I'm already behind. Like everybody else they got their projects in, they got their homework done. Everybody else bought the book. I didn't even read the chapter. It's just no point of even going. So now it's not even about the future. It's about what's going on right now. Like I don't have any energy to put one foot in front of the other. I'm already counting myself out. And as mentioned before, this is how we start going into the territory of self-sabotage. So we often talk about setting ourselves up for success, but we can also set ourselves up for failure depending on what we're focusing on and what we're choosing to think and believe in. So changing the core of the belief is the key. You got to change what you believe, because your belief system is what's going to turn this around. If you believe that you don't believe, if you believe that you don't belong here, if you believe that the college is doing you a favor by letting you in, if you believe that everybody else around you is smarter than you, if you believe that you will not graduate, then you're setting yourself up to go right on the road of your worst fears. And I'm here to encourage you to change your mind by believing something different about you and what you're capable of, even with the mistakes that you will make. So you are going to make mistakes as a grad student. It's all in how you learn. But again, remember what I talked about with self-perception. How do you look at mistakes? Do you look at it as something that is attributed to who you are as a person? Or do you look at it as, I am a person who makes mistakes because I'm human, and I'm going to use these mistakes as my greatest teachers so that I can learn and do better the next time? It's all about what you choose to believe. So I want you to take a look just at these two little comic strips here. The one on the left, as you can see, the person is being surrounded by positive praise, positive feedback, positive compliments, and the person is like, nah, yeah, whatever. But then if you look at the bottom box, there's only one negative comment that comes, and the person chooses to believe that. Remember, this is about choice. There's so much power in what you choose to do or not do, or what you choose to think, or not think. And this person chose not to listen to all of the positive feedback, but they chose to feed into the negative feedback, right? Um, and not only did they choose to pay attention to that, but then they internalized it. I'm a failure. It's me. Like I am the failure. I am a failure. A person can fail at something, but that doesn't mean that you yourself that you're a failure. So one little tidbit I'm gonna throw in here is, do not internalize your mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen. I'm gonna say it over and over again, so that for those of you who feel like you can go through grad school without making a mistake, we are going to bust that myth right now. You are going to make mistakes. Why? Because have you ever been to grad school before? Now I know that there's some people who might be going for a secondary master's, or something like that. But even if you are coming back into a new graduate program, the program is still different. You've never done it before. So even if you are returning, you're still going to make mistakes because you're doing something you've never done before, if that makes sense. Now, if you look at the picture on the right, you have three people talking, and the first person says, "This is Dr. Adams. She's a social psychologist, and she's the world's top expert on imposter syndrome." And then Dr. Adams says, "Ha, don't be silly. There are lots of scholars who've made more significant." Oh my God, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. So it's kind of like you have an expert who knows all about imposter syndrome, but is also engaging in imposter syndrome. Like I told you, I am the assistant director of CAPS. I am a clinician. I've been a clinician for many years. I know all about imposter syndrome. I talk about imposter syndrome all over campus. But do you think that that stopped me from experiencing imposter syndrome? Absolutely not. So let's move past grad school. Already graduated, got my doctorate, all of that stuff. When I came into this role as assistant director about 14 months ago, I had serious imposter syndrome. I have the degree, I have the expertise, I have the letters of recommendation, everything. But I'm like, I don't think I can do this. I've never been an assistant director before. Like, I am overseeing a staff of people who are looking at me trying to figure out what to do. I'm supposed to manage operations and multiple projects, and I'm supposed to do this and I'm supposed to do that. Any minute now, somebody's going to realize that I don't know what the heck I'm doing, and I'm going to look like I'm going to be an embarrassment. I'm going to be an embarrassment. That's honestly what I was going through. I was struggling with imposter syndrome all last year, to be quite honest. Like my first year, I struggled with it a lot. Even though I was doing presentations like this, I was still struggling through it. And I'm sharing this with you all because I want you to know whenever something new comes about, imposter syndrome is doing this. Oh, yeah. She's doing something new. He's doing something new. This is the perfect place for me to start planting seeds of doubt and criticism and comparison because that's what imposter syndrome feeds off of, the newness. A lot of times we can get intimidated by the newness. It can be overwhelming. And that's where imposter syndrome, that's the crack in the door that imposter syndrome needs to come right in and tell you why, give you a million reasons why you're not going to be able to navigate the newness. But I'm here to tell you, you can. You can. What's new is not always going to be new, but there are always going to be new experiences as a part of your graduate level learning journey. So as long as you remain open to the newness and you already realize that you're going to make mistakes and you understand that mistakes are a part of your learning and it's on the pathway of success, then you will navigate the newness just fine. All right, so there's 5 types of imposters, right? So let's start with the perfectionist. So you don't have to raise your hands, but I'll be the first to do it. I am a recovering perfectionist, okay? I don't quite know where I picked this up at. I think maybe I picked it up maybe starting in my master's program and it just stuck. I have no idea. But the perfectionist, this means that this type of person sets extremely high standards for themselves and they beat themselves up when they don't reach them. Everything has to be perfect. There can be no errors at all. For the perfectionist, there is a single focus, and that is how something is done. So you believe you should deliver a perfect performance 100% of the time. And when you fail to measure up to these unrealistically high standards, like I had mentioned before, it only confirms that you are fake. Because if you weren't, why did you make a mistake? Why did you make a typo? Like, why did you get one question on the exam wrong? There were 65 questions and you got one wrong. So even though you passed and got one of the highest scores in the class, you should have known that answer. Like, why did you miss that? It's not good enough. So the drive for perfection and the fear of failure can leave you deliberately, um, it could feed into procrastination or overworking. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things to where I want you all to realize that perfectionism, anxiety, fear, it's all under the same umbrella. The reason why perfectionists operate the way they do is because they are afraid of what a mistake will make them look like and what a mistake means as far as them. I'm not a person who makes mistakes. I should have seen that. I looked over this 50 times. How is it that I could have missed that? Because maybe you were looking at it too much. Maybe it's because you were looking at it 50 times. When you over review something, you miss details simply because your mind is overwhelmed with the same material. But even with that explanation, It's fine. Like it's absolutely fine. The SWAT team is not going to kick down your door and take you away because you made a mistake on a paper or a project or an email. Again, how do you perceive mistakes? Do you think they're a part of who you are? Is that what you believe? That if you make a mistake, you're a mistake. It's a mistake that you're in this program. That if you fail at something, you're a failure. Again, you got to change the core of that belief. I am a very intelligent person who made a mistake. That is possible. That's very possible. So now let's talk about the expert, right? So this type of person, you have to know everything because you're an expert. So you have to know everything. And when you don't know everything, that means you're what? A fraud. For the experts, your concern is how much knowledge or skill you possess. And as far as you're concerned, you can never have enough information. You believe that there must be a certain threshold of experience needed to be considered successful or competent rather than learning as you go. There is no learning as you go. You're just supposed to know. You're just supposed to know. Your self talk sounds like this. If I were really smart, I would understand and remember everything that I read. Or before I can put myself out there, I need in depth education, training, and experience. So it's almost like you're trying to do a lot of front loading without learning. And I see this a lot. When I used to work with medical students, I remember students coming into the program asking me the summer before that they were actually supposed to start. So they would start in the fall and they were, admitted a couple months beforehand. They would reach out to me and say, "Should I start learning anatomy now?" And I'm like, no, no, that's the whole point of you taking an anatomy course. It's one of the first courses that you're going to take. Like, you don't need, and this is when I was an academic advisor. So I'm like, no, do not try to self teach yourself anatomy. That's the whole purpose of why you're coming into the program so that you can learn this. Even with the medical students that I work with now as a counselor, students who are going into rotations, I remember a student telling me, like, you know, I don't know anything really about this facility. I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing. And I asked the student, how are you supposed to know? You've never been there. You've never experienced this type of experience in real life. Hence, this is the whole point of a rotation. But you're going in there thinking that you're already supposed to know so much because you can't make a mistake. So this already just feeds the fear, feeds the anxiety. It puts yourself in a negative place to where you don't have any room for the openness and the possibilities of being excited about learning because you feel like you should already know these things. Let's talk about the super person, the Superman, the Superwoman, right? So you feel like you should be able to excel at every role you take on in life, period. You're just supposed to know how to do everything and do it well. So for the super person, competence rests on the ability to juggle multiple roles masterfully. You believe you can do it all and you're unable to say no, even if you're struggling to keep up with everything. For you, competence has much to do with how many things you can handle as it does how well you do them. You tell yourself, if I were really competent, I'd be able to do it all. I am very guilty of this. This is what I have done, like in the past, in grad school and post grad school, just saying that I'll volunteer, I'll do that, I'll sign up for this. If you need any help, I'll do it. I'll run the meeting, I'll do this, I'll do that. Not even realizing that I'm only one person. I can't do all of the things that I said that I was going to do. But if I say that and I ask for help, I'm going to be looked at as weak. Why can't I do all of these things? I'm not looking for, I don't want anybody looking at me as inferior. Now, mind you, I am a Black woman, right? So there is a stereotype for Black people that we are inferior. Like these are the historical messages that has followed us throughout our history. And one of those stereotypes was intellectually inferior. So in grad school, I'm like, if I have to ask anyone, I was the only Black person in my cohort. If I have to ask anybody for anything, I'm going to be looked at as inferior. I'm going to be looked at as the weakest link. You're not going to be looking at me like I dropped the ball. So instead of dropping the ball, I'm going to carry the ball and I'm going to juggle 8 others just so that you know that I deserve to be here. And we're going to talk about how different things factor into why people feel like they have to handle multiple things because there's certain factors, demographic factors, contextual factors that influence why we choose to believe what we believe about ourselves, even if it is not true. So now let's go on to the soloist, right? So with the soloist, you believe that you got to accomplish everything by yourself. You are an island. You can do it all. And you refuse to take credit if you had any kind of help. So this person is like, I got it. I don't need any help. I don't need to work in a group. Like, I don't, I just, in order to be competent with what I'm doing, I have to do it all myself. And I learned very quickly in grad school that this wasn't going to fly. Now, in undergrad, I was an island. You know, they would always say, hey, exchange numbers with the person next to you just in case you need to swap notes and do this and do that. I'm like, no, you know, I can do it myself. I don't really need to swap numbers and contact anybody. I can really just do it myself. In grad school, I learned very quickly, like, that's not going to work. This work is really it's too complex and it's too hard for me to try to figure out everything on my own. So that broke that real quick. But there are other individuals in graduate school who they are still maintaining that I can do it all by myself attitude, and that's not going to work. It's just going to make your journey harder than it already is. So as a soloist, you mostly care about who completes the task. As you typically turn down help to prove your worth as an individual, in your mind, the only achievements that really count are those you reached all on your own. So the misguided thinking here is if I were really smart, I could just do everything myself. And that is not true. Now let's go to the natural genius, right? So for this person, you tell yourself everything must be handled with ease. Otherwise, it is not a natural talent. If I have to struggle to learn it, if I have to develop it, if I have to practice it, then do I really know? Am I really smart if I have to practice? No, it should be a natural talent. So for the natural genius, true competence means having inherent intelligence and ability. Since intelligence and ability are seen as innate, the thinking here is that success should be effortless. You strive to master any new skill with little effort and believe that if you have to work hard at something, then you must not be good at it. So the thinking here is if I was a real writer, for example, it wouldn't be this hard. Now, I think we can all see the fallacy there. Everything is not innate. You're not going to be naturally gifted at everything. Some things you are going to have to practice. For example, I can tell you right now, one of the hardest classes I took in grad school was statistics. Okay. I did not like statistics at all. This was not something that was natural to me, but I was already at this point. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have to practice. I'm going to make a ton of mistakes on this because I know that I don't understand like statistics. But there were other things that are innate to me, like public speaking. That's something I can do with my eyes closed. Like I could do it in my sleep because it's something that I am naturally gifted at. It is completely okay to acknowledge where you are naturally skilled and able to do things, but you have to also accept that you're not going to be naturally great at everything. And even the things that are innate to you still need some polishing, still need some shaping. Does that mean that you're not good at it? Absolutely not. It just means that you can improve in this area. So you have to accept your strengths as well as acknowledge and accept your weaknesses, knowing that a weakness does not define who you are. It just highlights areas that you can grow and improve. Causes and contributions to imposter syndrome. This is kind of what I was talking about a little bit earlier. So, family dynamics. This can factor a lot into how you feel and what you think about yourself based off of what kind of messages you learn about yourself in your home environment, in your childhood growing up, you know, examples that you saw, things that you were taught. And for a lot of people, there has to be some undoing of certain things that you were taught about you. You know, I've worked with tons of people over the years who have had untrue messages about them kind of ingrained in their head. You know, you're never going to make it to college. Nobody else went to college in this family. You think you're really going to make it? I don't think so. There's a lot of that that goes on in home environments. And so if that is someone in this audience where you are battling messages that you learned when you were young, you can do that. You can do that. I want your experiences now to be just a punch in the face to those negative messages that you may have received. And if you have trouble doing that, then there are people here on campus that can help you navigate and undo and reconstruct and create new messages in your mind. And I'll talk about those resources a little bit later. Cultural expectations and stereotypes. That's what I was talking about earlier. As a Black woman in who attended a predominantly white college, being the only Black person in my cohort of 4 people, I was very much aware of what the world thought of me, people who looked like me, people who had my skin color. And I already went into my program with something to prove. I'm going to prove to you that, yeah, I'm a Black girl from Detroit, but I'm smart and I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you by being a superwoman. I'm going to do everything and I'm not going to ask for help and I'm going to get straight A's. And I had the grades, but my physical body and my mental health were deteriorating. And it got so bad to whereas when I realized it, I was almost done with my program. And the only thing that I could think to do to empower myself and other people in my position was to do research on it and make it my dissertation topic. So that's exactly what I did. But I hope that with a presentation like this, you don't have to find out almost at graduation that you probably need to pivot your thinking and your behavior and do something different so that you can actually enjoy the journey of being a grad student. Because believe it or not, I don't know what you heard, but you can actually enjoy this journey. You really can. If you allow yourself to, if you tell yourself different messages, if you change the core of your belief system, you can actually enjoy this journey. And that's what I'm hoping that I can instill in you all today, the joy of learning, even with the unknown, even with the mistakes. There's such a joy in being and starting this journey and being here where you are right now. Personality traits, you know what I mean? Like let's just say, for example, type A, type B, that type of thing. Depending on just how you are, your personality is, that could also feed into imposter syndrome too. Because usually we know type A individuals and individuals who are pretty rigid and fixed, in their mindset. There's really no room for things that go off plan, and when they do, the adjustment is pretty difficult. For example, so personality plays into this. Existing mental health concerns that could also factor into this. So if you're a person who's already been dealing with anxiety or depression, bipolar disorder, like these are things that could also factor in. If you have, like, for example, like a disability, whether visible or invisible disability, that could also factor into feeling like an imposter. I have worked with a lot of students with disabilities who feel like maybe because of their disability or their physical health condition, they're not going to be able to cut it in grad school, that the professors are not going to understand, that people are going to look at them and wonder, like, why are you here? Why do you need this accommodation? Like, what? If you can't cut it, that you don't need to be here if you need help. That's another reason why a lot of students don't get accommodations from disability and accessibility support services or the DAS office. They feel as though if they need an accommodation, that must mean that you're not smart enough if you have to get help from DAS. And I want to say right now, that is completely false. If you are a student who needs accommodations, please apply for the accommodation. Contact DAS, speak with the specialist over there, get yourself set up for success, because I'm telling you, denying yourself the help that is free and available to you is not going to do anything but hurt yourself in the long run. I have seen students struggle because they're like, I am not getting an accommodation. I do not want people to know that I need help. I don't want my professors to know. I don't want my peers to know. I don't want people in residency to know. I don't want future employers to know. I don't want people in an internship to know. I don't want people to know that I need help. If they figure that out, then they're going to look at me differently. Then they're not going to look at me as smart if I always need help with things. That is not true. Get the help. That is why it's here. Please, if you know or even think you might need accommodations going forward with your classes in the fall and beyond, please contact the DAS office. New opportunities and or responsibilities. Already talked about that, right? The newness. Imposter syndrome loves new because, like I said before, it's the crack in the door that it needs to just slip on through and give you a whole laundry list of why you're not going to be able to make it here. But remember, we are going to tell ourselves differently. I can make it here. Nope, I've never been to this campus. Nope, I've never been in this program. Nope, I've never been in graduate school before. But you know what? This is a new opportunity for me to level up my learning and I am going to be successful. You got to start telling yourself different messages so that your thoughts can get realigned and your behavior will follow the thoughts, because cognitively, behaviors follow thoughts. There's no way that your behaviors are going to change if your thinking remains the same. And then intersectional identities in certain spaces. So, like I said, I am Black but I am also a woman, a Black woman. You cannot separate those things out. It is a part of who I am. So to look at me, you have to look at me not just as a Black person and not just as a woman, but a Black woman. There's a lot of intersectional, identities. And so depending on how you are looking at yourself in the mirror, you might be somebody, who you're a mom and um you're from the South, so you have a country accent. That's a part of your intersectional identity. It's talking about the region where you come from, also the standard and status of who you are as a person. I am a mom from the South. You cannot separate those things, you know what I mean? But there's a lot of layers of our identities that, intersect. And a lot of times I think what the world tries to do is only look at you or as one or the other. But it's like, nope, you got to take me as I am. I'm all of these things. You can't pick out the parts that you want to acknowledge and then dismiss the parts that you don't like. I'm showing up authentically me, all of this. And sometimes what we will try to do is we will try to downplay a part of ourselves in order to be accepted. I had a classmate who identified as a gay male, a gay white male, right? But he felt like that was not going to be accepted in the program. So he downplayed his sexual orientation so that he could be acceptable to other people, because in his mind, people are not going to accept me if I show up here as who I am authentically. That's not going to be accepted. And there are reasons why people think this way, right? Things that we see in the news, things that we hear, like I'm not going to just sit here and act like there's not reasons why people decide to be a little bit more subtle with parts of their identity. But I also hope to encourage you all to show up as your authentic selves, because it makes the journey a lot easier when you don't have to code switch, when you don't have to fake, when you don't have to show up as somebody who you think other people like. Your journey in life and in grad school will be challenging enough. Putting on a mask every day and being somebody who you're not, that's not something that I want anyone to have to deal with, on a daily basis. So just a word of encouragement there. All right, so overcoming imposter syndrome, right? So now we know what it is. Now we know what factors into it, what contributes to it, what it can look like. But the important thing is talking about how do we overcome it, because it is possible to overcome imposter syndrome. So let's talk about the power of reframing. And when I say reframing, it's changing our viewpoint on what we're looking at. So in order to stop feeling like an imposter, you got to stop thinking like an imposter. It starts with the core of your thoughts. I remember reading some very interesting research about about fear and excitement, right? And so in this research that I read, it's basically said the body can't differentiate between feelings of fear and feelings of excitement. A lot of the physical symptoms are the same with both emotional experiences. So physical responses to both, like I said, are very similar. Your nervous system becomes aroused, and you know this because of the physical sensations you feel inside of your body. Your body tells you how you're feeling, but you have to tell your mind how you're feeling. I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought that was pretty interesting because it means that you have to determine, how am I going to look at this situation? How am I going to look at this? Am I going to choose to look at this like it's in fear? Or am I going to choose to look at this as something that is not threatening me, but maybe is challenging me? You determine. You have to tell yourself, like, for example, getting a new job. You can be really excited about getting the new job. You're excited. You went through the interview. You actually got hired for the job. So now you're like, oh my God, I'm nervous. I'm excited. Like my palms are sweating. My heart's kind of racing. I just got the call today. Remember, the physical symptoms can look just like fear. You can have sweaty palms. You can have a racing heartbeat, um, all because maybe it's something that you're afraid of. So in this situation, you have to tell yourself, you have to look at the contextual clues and you have to tell yourself, what is this? How am I going to interpret this? I got a new job, a job that I've been waiting for. I finally got the call back and I got hired. This is a good thing. This is a good thing. There's nothing that I need to be afraid of. I am okay. Actually, I'm better than okay because I got the job. This is okay. Once you tell yourself this in your thoughts, then your body will fall into alignment. Remember what I said about your behaviors will follow your thoughts? Once you tell your body that it's okay, like this is okay, we're getting on the same page, your body is going to chill out and it's going to say, oh, okay, just wanted to make sure because I didn't know, wasn't sure. You have to tell your body how to interpret the environment so that you're not unnecessarily putting yourself through stress, fear, fight, or flight for a situation that's really supposed to be for your betterment. Some more solutions, right? Celebrate your wins. I think that students, when they start going through a new journey, they can really quickly find everything that they're losing at. Maybe it could be a failed exam grade, or maybe it could be a deadline that they missed, or how behind they are on a particular class. But when I ask students about telling me their wins, I even asked this of my staff. Let's talk about wins. I think we all focus on the losses or the bad points more than the good points and the wins. But if you focus on the wins and you celebrate those wins, then you offset the anxiety about what I didn't do. Yes, I was supposed to study this weekend, but something else came up. But I do have some free time Monday and Tuesday, so I'm going to make sure I block out the time because the exam is on Thursday. Now, it's cutting it kind of close, but I'm going to dedicate myself to studying Monday and Tuesday with no distraction so I can do good on the exam, right? Celebrate those wins. Yes, you may not have gotten a good exam score this time, but you got two other ones that were great, which means maybe it was just something with this one. Maybe it was some other things that had nothing to do with the material that maybe you need to modify in your life. But let's celebrate those wins. You made it through your first semester. Let's celebrate that. Before we roll into the next one, let's just celebrate that we got through this one, okay? Embrace praise. Embrace praise. Like when people tell you that you're doing a good job, don't be so quick to minimize it. Oh, that wasn't a big deal. Like it was, anybody could have did it. I'm pretty sure Sherry did it better, but I did the best I could. No, embrace it with a thank you. You don't have to go into a whole deep explanation as to why you are not deserving of the praise. You are deserving. You are worthy. You are deserving. So when the praise starts coming, just embrace it. Just embrace it because this is another way that affirms you. Affirmations are going to be very important. Remember when I said that you have to tell yourself something different? When you embrace praise, that's other people telling you something that's counteracting what imposter syndrome is telling you. Don't block off that kind of support. You need as much support as you can to tell imposter syndrome, hey, you're the liar. Whatever you're telling me isn't true. Stop comparing. Everybody's different. Everybody learns differently. Everybody has a different method of working differently. Everybody does things in a different way that best suits how they learn, how they receive information. So just because you're doing something different than somebody else, that doesn't mean that what you're doing isn't working for you. It may not work for anyone else, but just because you're not doing what other people are doing, even if it's a group of people doing the same thing, just because you're not doing it, that doesn't mean that is not working for you. So please, please don't compare. Realize that everybody's in their own lane. This is not a race. It's a marathon. Everybody's in their own lane. So be comfortable at going at your own pace. Give yourself grace and compassion. If you make a mistake, it's okay to feel bummed out about it, but don't be that harsh critic by saying what you should have known, what you should have done, what you should have did differently, what you should have did better. Just say, you know what? Oh, this kind of sucks, but I am going to do better next time. And have a growth mindset. Have a growth mindset. Keep your mind open to the possibilities of learning. There's a whole philosophy about fixed versus growth mindset, but the short of it is if you have a growth mindset, you are leaving your mind open to learning different things, even from your mistakes. And what other people are doing is not a reflection of what you're not doing. This is just a reminder. Focus on the facts, not the fears. You want to beat anxiety? Anxiety is going to try to flush you out with the fears. Then you come back at it with facts. Come back at it with facts. Because remember, anxiety is always going to try to tell you what's going to happen in the future. There's no confirmation, there's no evidence, there's nothing that confirms that what this fear is actually going to manifest. So what you do is you smack anxiety in the face with a present reality. Look, you're telling me that I'm going to fail out of this program. I'm just taking my first class. I'm going to do well. I'm going to try hard and I'm going to do the best I can. And if I know I need help, I am going to ask. Affirm yourself every time. And we talked a lot about affirmation, so I'm not going to go too deep into it now, but tell yourself something different, something that's the opposite of what imposter syndrome is telling you. Like I said, failure can teach you a lot. So let it be your teacher. Let it be your teacher, not your punisher. Let it be your teacher. Self love, self care, self celebration. Grad school is no joke. I'm not going to sugarcoat and be like, oh, it's going to be great. Some days are not going to be great. It's not. Grad school is a very challenging experience, but I'm telling you, it's going to break you down and build you up into such a more confident, knowledgeable, just amazing individual. So take care of yourself. Take breaks. If you can squeeze in a vacation once or twice in a year, do it. Even if it's a staycation, make sure that you're staying in contact with family and friends so that you can receive that external support. And celebrate every chance you get. You don't have to wait until graduation to celebrate, because that's when a lot of students do. They get in, they don't really celebrate that, but then they think the big celebration happens on graduation day. There's so many other windows and so many other opportunities for celebration. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody. You're not going to be the only one. So if you make one, please don't think you're the only one because everybody is going to make mistakes on this journey. And just be kind to your mind. Don't overwork it because you feel like you have to be an expert, because you feel like everything has to be perfect. You and your mind are on the same team. If you start working against it, your brain is going to go on strike. And what I mean by that is when it's exam day, your brain is going to be like, look, we studied for 16 hours last night and I'm tired. Peace out. You can figure out how you're going to get through this exam, but I am going to bed. I have seen this happen to students with the blanking out on exams because you're pulling all nighters and doing all of this stuff. Remember, you and your mind are on the same team, so please treat it with kindness. All right, so this is just, and I'm not going to go through all of these things, but this is just a visual of the fixed versus growth mindset. So just viewing challenges as opportunities, being inspired, not intimidated by the success of other people. You still persist and go forward in the face of setbacks. I know it's hard to get back up again after taking a fall, but it's falling is how you learn how to stand taller and stronger. And just making sure that you give yourself as much compassion when you receive things like feedback. It's not a personal thing. You want to respond to yourself with some compassion here. Like, hey, I know that you don't feel really great about this, but the feedback that you're getting from this professor is only going to make you better, like for the next attempt. And of course, the fixed mindset is everything that's opposite of that. Giving up easily, avoiding challenges, being intimidated by other people's success. Notice how bland it is on the left side and how colorful it is on the right side. Make sure that you keep that vividness in your mind, in your mindset, so that you can always keep yourself open for the possibilities of learning. So these are just some reflective questions. Feel free, if you want to take a picture of this, but try answering these questions to see what you can learn about yourself and your mindset so that you can improve and reconstruct the way that you think. So what are your accomplishments? Again, focusing on your wins. Um, which beliefs about success are holding you back? Um, what would you say to your friend in this situation that you're currently struggling with? And then how would you say it to yourself? So if you would say this, because a lot of times we are so quick to comfort a friend when they're struggling, turn that right back around and put in that scenario and say it to yourself. What abilities or strengths are you overlooking? Because again, this is another version of how you focus on wins. Because a lot of times we can point out where we're weak at, but we're not focusing on our strengths. And if you're not focusing on your strengths, that's also not a good thing, because your strengths are what's going to help you find the motivation and the confidence to really dig into your weaknesses and improve those. So again, oh, and I like that last one. When have I proved my inner critic wrong in the past? It's important to figure out, hey, when were there times when this harsh inner critic that told me I could have done better, when were they wrong? because that only confirms that when that critic comes back up again in the form of imposter syndrome, you can say, well, you were wrong then. When you told me this, you were wrong. So if you were wrong then, you're wrong now. And that's when you can affirm yourself with a different message. So that's actually the end of my actual presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing. But one thing that I do want to encourage you all about is if you are someone who is maybe dealing with some difficulties mentally as far as navigating the newness, imposter syndrome, fear, or maybe it's some of those childhood environmental messages that we talked about earlier, you can always contact CAPS. And one of our counselors, including myself, I'm a counselor here as well, we would be more than happy to help you navigate through all of that, help you undo, reconstruct, toss out some of that old stuff, put something new in there that can help you be successful in grad school. So you can find us at U of M-Flint, umflint.edu/CAPS. You can just Google us, UM-Flint CAPS, and our information will pop up. But if you need help, just like what I said with accommodations, if you need help, contacting CAPS does not mean that you're not going to be capable in this program. It means that you know what you need and you are willing to do what it takes to get the help, get the support, get the resources so that you can navigate this journey in the best way possible. So thank you so much, you all, for listening. I really appreciate it.
You're getting your snaps in the chat there, Dr. Tooks.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much for being here. As always, amazing work. Let's open it up. Let's see if there's any questions that anyone wants to ask today. I'm seeing lots of thank you, thank you, thank you. But if anyone has any question, feel free to raise your hand, or if you have anything you want to put in the chat, feel free as well.
Yes,
But it
please. I'm
seems like
reading everything. I appreciate all of it. Thank you all so much. I wish I had this in my BA program. I know, right?
because syndrome is not just in the grad programs. It
Oh
happens
no.
it happens in undergrad as well.
Yep, it happens in undergrad, it happens in grad and post grad. Like I told you, I got my career has well been off, but I got a new experience. And like I said, here's imposter syndrome, something new that I can kind of make you feel afraid about.
So we've got a question from Frida. I'm going to allow her to talk. Go ahead, Frida.
Thank you. And actually, it's just kind of a comment because one of the things that you mentioned, Doctor, is about how this, is helping us in our journey in grad school. It can help in, post grad. But I have an adult son who's actually he's in his master's program as well, um, and I have two teenage daughters. This is something that I think is extremely important for
Mm,
teenagers, kids that are going from middle school to high school. They're
mm-hmm.
going from elementary school to middle school because I see that. And it happens almost every time they go to a different grade. It's an imposter syndrome. I didn't know the name, but you see that all through life. We do it at work. You look at jobs, we look at promotions, we look at positions, just like how you mentioned what you went through. We go through that on our jobs, but our children, if you have children, they're going through that. Our kids go through that in preschool. They hope somebody likes them and will play with them at the playground. It's kind of like this is something that I think should be embraced throughout our whole life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's
Absolutely.
very, very informative. I'm going to take some of this information and try to, pour it into some of the children that I deal with and the people that I see
Absolutely,
because it's
Frida. Adapt
yeah,
it because it's applicable. This is not an age restricted type of
exactly.
concept. I mean, I know we're talking about grad school, but like you said, just trying to appear likable to people. I know with my staff, I'm like, I want to be likable, but at the same time, I have to be assertive because I have to
Right.
lead. But if I lead and they don't like how I lead, they're not gonna like. And I'm a full-grown
Exactly.
adult dealing
Yes.
with this, so I get it.
And yes, and that's what our children, that's what kids are going through every day. I hear it so much where they're trying to fit in, and instead of fitting in, just fit out. You know what I'm saying? Do what you do best.
Yeah.
So no, thank you for that. This was very, very informative.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks, Freed. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? or comments, anything that anyone wants to say before we finish up for the day. If not, that is great. I want to make sure to put out there that this is the start of our Jumpstart orientation. Tomorrow, we're going to be having 2 great additional sessions that are going to be here to help you in many different ways. At 4 o'clock tomorrow, we're going to be talking about being a scholarly writer, about talking about that difference in the expectation that comes with being a writer in graduate school versus being a writer as an undergraduate student, and the expectations from your faculty as well as just on yourself. So we have individuals from our writing center that are going to be joining us to talk about that. And then we're going to have a panel of a few different faculty members that are going to be joining us to answer questions and to talk to you about what do they expect? What to kind of demystify what it means when you're entering that classroom so that you can ask questions of these faculty members. And they're from different areas. We have one from our College of Innovation and Technology. We also have another from our College of Art, Science, and Education. So very different fields, but both are going to be able to share some different perspectives with you. And then on Wednesday, we're going to be talking about even different topics. On Wednesday, we're going to be having another member of Dr. Tookes' staff. Riley Chibi is going to be with us, and Riley is going to be talking about finding support and setting boundaries, because as you enter graduate school, there's going to be a lot of pulls on your time, and you have to be able to set those boundaries for yourself and for others so that you can achieve the goals that you've set for yourself. And then we're going to be finishing the conversation with thinking about the goal in mind. We're going to be talking about jumpstarting your career as you're going through graduate school. What can you do to prepare yourself for achieving that goal, achieving that position, whatever that end goal is? We're going to be ending our Jumpstart orientation with that conversation on Wednesday. So thank you for being here tonight. Really appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Dr. Tookes, thanks so much for being here, for all of the amazing work and what you've shared today.
Yeah, and I put
And
my information in the chat. So I have my email there. I also have the CAPS website there. If you want to learn more, make sure you scroll down and click on that yellow button that says intranet. That'll allow you to see some more information about our office. But thank you again, Dr. Lewis, and everyone here for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you all for being here. We'll see you all tomorrow.